And the reason for being here today is to give this talk and to catch up with a lot of these amazing things that are happening in Europe. I think also both in my country, but generally the continent. There are amazing new changes happening, and I think we're all very interested in these things. So today I was planning, I'm not going to speak about the piece that I did in Venice, obviously. I wanted to draw your attention into a kind of a new project, which is a publication. It's a book that brings together a period of research of almost 7 years, and this research is based on archives in 3 major political events in the contemporary history of Greece, or modern history of Greece, if you want to say that. It starts in 47, immediately after the Second World War, and it goes up until 2002. So the name of the book, the title of the book, and its subtitle is Archive Crisis: Shaking Up the Shelves of History. And it's actually concerned with these 3 events: the Truman Doctrine, 1947, the dictatorship of the colonels, 1967-74, and the Marxist Revolutionary Organization, 17 November 1974 to 2002. The reason why I wanted to do this lecture today about archives and about what is the importance of archives, not only in my work, but generally the way archives are regarded by contemporary art and contemporary artists, which has been since the last 5, maybe 10 years, a major part in the practice of a lot of contemporary artists, is because we're again dealing with a medium, with an artistic medium, which is the medium of photography, for example. But at the same time, these objects, these photographs, they contain 2 major elements. One is the aesthetical part, and the other part is that they become mediums of reality or of events. They're kind of become this transcendental objects that they combine 2 diametrically different nature, the nature of aesthetics and manipulation on one hand, which is the nature of photography or art, and on the other hand, they stand as the guardians of history or of reality. So what I find also very interesting in these paintings and this exhibition, and I was saying to everybody who is involved in this exhibition that for me as a Greek entering the show, it is an exhibition which is void of content, because I can't relate to the content of these images, but I can relate to the images as content. And it brings all sort of very interesting questions between whether art itself can attribute content to the content, either political or historical, and what exactly are these blurred lines, and how much trust can we actually give or put into these art objects as talking about reality. And if we take it a step further and talking about photographs and archival documents, this goes definitely more into this debate as on one hand as a concrete aspect of reality, which is photography, and then on the other hand the artistic participation of any given artist, whether a journalist or other. So I will start with a project which is based in the Truman Doctrine. I will give you a little bit of historical context of what the Truman Doctrine is. So it was a set of rules presented by Harry S. Truman in 1947, and it preceded the Marshall Plan. The Truman Doctrine was only for the 2 countries in the Eastern Mediterranean, Greece and Turkey, and because of the fear of that the Soviet Union is the power of influence was so strong and so present in both countries, they decided, the United States, after this speech of Truman in 1947, to aid both Greece and Turkey with military but also financial aid. And that is not widely known, but it is the first step taken by the United States as the successor of the British Empire, of trying to bring into its sphere of influence certain countries. So that's why also in the book is strongly debated whether Greece, after this intervention of the United States, somehow became part of this crypto-colonial, let's say, power of the United States. And what it stated also in this document and in this speech is the fact that that the United States culturally is putting its foothold in the interior politics of Greece. So the financial and military aid obviously decided by large the result of the civil war that Greece was suffering immediately after the Second World War, and the winners of the war later on wanted to thank Harry Truman for his support to Greece, and later in 1963, a Greek-American organization, which is called AHEPANS, they decided to make a gift to Greece by creating a statue of Harry S. Truman and placing it somewhere downtown in Athens. So my research starts by trying to find archival material and information that is related to this monument. And after extensive researches and without having anything in mind, I bumped into this series of images. You're just going to see a few images of that, which is this wooden box arriving with a cruise ship from the United States, and it contains the actual statue of Truman. So these photographs document the delivery of the monument, of the statue, but also here you will see a series of photographs where they portray American and Greek politicians preparing the grounds and the pedestal to put him on, and etc. So this is the statue. It was created by Félix de Velton. It's an Austrian sculptor who was also the same sculptor who made the Iwo Jima monument with the 5 American soldiers raising the American flag. So, among other things, he was regarded as one of the most successful American sculptors. This is the final position of the statue of Truman, and that was back in 1963. And here these are clips from 16mm film footage from the news of the day back in 1963, where it's the actual unveiling of the monument in front of a big crowd and with the politicians of the day participating in that. So that was clearly kind of taking positions in an embattled society after Civil War, and honestly to this day Civil War is still an open wound. It's not something that is resolved in the conscious and subconscious of Greek society. So having a monument like that in the public space, it obviously creates a lot of debate. And here's a series of photographs that they're talking about exactly that, about how other citizens are completely disagreeing with this, with the placement of this monument in the public space. And what you're seeing here is the damages that they happened to this monument over and over again over a period of almost like 30 years plus. And this is from a foundry where they're restoring the statue itself. There is a very well recorded history of all the destructions caused on the statue by throwing bombs or taking it down with ropes or painting it several times. And I was able to get these images from a completely different other source, which is the Department of Restoration from the city hall of Athens. So, and here there's going to be some more documentation of video documentation, actually clips, excerpts of the pedestal completely empty of the statue, as you see here. So the story for me personally, it starts when I first saw this monument as a student of the Fine Arts Academy in Athens, and it struck me the fact that I saw it and I didn't know what this statue was all about. I thought obviously from its position and everything that it was a Greek politician, but obviously walking close to the pedestal and reading the inscription, I read that it's Harry Truman, an American politician. So the question started of what is the position of a monument like that in a Greek territory. That was my first impression, and over the years this somehow stayed in my mind, and it grew more and more as a concept, as how do we relate to history, also through objects in public spaces, and what exactly does it mean to know or not knowing what exactly the historical representation is yielded inside this artistic manifestation. So the idea of kind of trying to be as close as possible to this first sort of like rejection of content, between content and image, it was somehow sparked my imagination to kind of project my own history or my own story upon this object. And I wrote a very sort of allegoric or fictional story, if you want, and that it would go with this statue, with this unknown statue for me. And I reconstructed the statue with the help of a sculptor. So we created an exact replica of it. And the story goes in a very fictional way that this was discovered by two farmers somewhere in the countryside of Greece. And perhaps some of you may know that Greece's grounds are so rich with statues and antiques and antiquities, and a lot of times people find things and they immediately inquire whether they can become rich or how they can sell them abroad, etc., etc. So there is a sort of discussion between those two farmers or whether there is value by having this statue in their hands and what they can do with it. But immediately they dismiss that option as preposterous, because such an ugly statue wouldn't stand a chance to try to sell it and make any money with it. And so they decide to get rid of it and throw it in a ravine, and who knows where this goes. And obviously it lands in the pool of middle-class bourgeoisie kind of house with different people chilling around the pool, and then all of a sudden, they're totally saddened by what fell inside their pool, and trying to figure out what exactly this thing is, where did it fall from, etc., etc. So it becomes all very sort of like allegoric and grotesque, but then at the same time, I'm using this vehicle as a way to expose a lot of these hidden sort of preoccupations of Greek society, starting with the farmers and then moving into the bourgeois. And so they decide, because it's such an ugly object, they can't take it out in their yard because all their friends will comment in a very bad way about their taste. So they decide to throw it back in the sea in the night, so nobody sees them with this object in their hands, in their position. So a fisherman is collecting this statue from the sea, and it's actually it's a Turkish fisherman, and that goes with the Turkish implication of the Truman Doctrine. So I didn't want to leave the friends of Greece, the Turks, out of this equation. And there's again a discussion about what is this thing doing there, and the fisherman is responding to this young assistant that he has with him, that is probably one of these big American cruise ships that a drunk man probably threw it in the sea, and that is actually very true. A lot of these weird objects that fishermen find in the Aegean Sea are fallen from American cruise ships. So the kind of the next act, which brings us also more to our times and what's happening in Greece nowadays, with the influx of a lot of immigrants from the Middle East and from other countries, this is also a moment where we see a kind of deserted beach where, you know, a bunch of immigrants are coming out of the sea, and together with them we see also the statue somewhere in the corner in the rocks, and then together with the garbage and then obviously they seek they seek new territories. They have to enter new economies, and with them this old concept of Greek history is coming with them. And for me it was a very important moment to bring those realities in this single shot, which is sort of like the last shot scene of the, I don't know if you can see it very clearly, of the fictional part of the film, where these immigrants, they kind of start inquiring what exactly this monument again represents, and because they have no idea about where it comes from, they assume that it's a Greek statue and it represents perhaps a Greek god or something like that. Obviously completely unaware again of the history of this country or of this land that they're entering. And the last sequence of the movie is of the actual location of the statue and the monument. So for those who are unaware of this, of the existence of this, a lot of people that don't know whether this is a fictional or a real statue, and Greeks included, of course. And for me, it was very interesting to sort of present reality in contrast with fiction or with the denial of reality, and in the hope that I will make my statement as sharp as possible with the way we deal with our history and our collective memory through these monuments, and that actually what it represents for me, this presence of the real location of the monument. So mind you, the film ends with explanation that this statue, after all this bombing and all this deconstruction that it kind of suffered, one of the latest ministers decided to include it in a program of protection of works in public space, artworks in public space. So again, what I found very interesting is that the whole debate, the whole discourse about public space and the way arts in public space are kind of generating this sort of perhaps void discussion about history or not. They always survive by entering this area of art, which somehow is a little bit also what's happening here as well, you know. So whether or not these art objects, they succeed in bringing in their content, despite whether any information is related to them or not, I find it as a very interesting debate, where we artists, that especially we are concerned and related to sort of political representation or languages where you know, the political aspects of visualization of historical events are very important. How do we enter, or how do we blur or not blur these lines more? I don't know how I'm doing with time, but
It's fine.
I don't know. I mean, the next two parts of this of my lecture today, they're also very long, and I don't know how fast I can take you through them because they're again historically very dense and to explain. But the second part is the coup d'état of the colonels that it starts the 21st of April 1967, and it goes. The first phase ends in 1973 with a resigning of Papadopoulos, but then another dictator succeeded him, and well, this also comes in a moment where the Cold War it's in its peak, and I did again. This is like related again to another project. This series of images from the period of the dictators, where we see the American presence in Greece. And this is perhaps this image portrays it in the most loud way, where the vice president of the U.S. Under Nixon administration, Spiros Agnew, which he had also some sort of Greek relations. He visited Greece, and this is all images part that are going to be in this publication, where somehow for me again I'm trying to create this sort of like new opening into these images. Most of them are unpublicized images, never been exposed before, and where we see a huge part of Greek history regarded in a completely different way. I'm just going a little bit fast through all this. These are sort of like propaganda feasts and representations of reenactments of the long history of Greece through cultural events that again try to sort of portray the dictators as the natural sort of succession in this long history of revolutions, as they consider themselves revolutionaries. But what's very interesting is they bring all this kitsch and all this sort of like outrageous visuals and cynic demonstrations about what is considered national. And why is this all important in my discussions? Because the Greek national television, it was founded and publicly transmitted exactly the same period like the Greek dictatorship took power. So we have two major events happening in '67. On one hand, it is the totalitarian regime, and on the one hand is the establishment of the sort of most democratic medium, and they used it in full advantage. And the book itself, it includes a series of photographs of the newly founded Greek national broadcast television, just before even anybody entered in there, and it tries to create a conclusion between the visual output and the mechanisms itself. And the work that it is related to all this research, it is the Untitled remake that I did in 2007 after a commission from the Greek First Athens Biennial, and I reconstructed one of those studios, the early studios from '67, taking equipment out of the Museum of Television, where two newscasters are preparing for the night news, and this whole piece is actually again a reenactment based on a 16mm footage that I found, where someone ran with a camera back at the time and filming the people getting ready for the news, for the newscasters that were just making up, and a lot of tests with lights. So basically what we witness with this movie, it's not something of substance, but something that is somehow behind the scenes of history, or how all this mechanism of television and transmission of news and history debating the content itself. The film itself presents parts of this reenactment, reconstruction of all these events, and preparations for this night news, and at the same time archival footage, clips of this parades that you saw earlier, nationalistic parades. And this last part is the guerrilla group, is a revolutionary group, 17 November 1973, 2002. Again, historically, that started immediately after the Greek dictatorship. When democracy was restored in Greece in late '73, early '74, we immediately have this the appearance of this group, and it remains hidden and concealed and in obscurity of who these perpetrators of almost 25 assassinations were. So the first assassination was of Richard Wells, which was a CIA stationary in Athens, and here again, what I'm trying to do is reconstruct through concealed imagery, again, these stories and put them in some kind of order. And what you see here, it's actually all these things are coming from a lot of various different sources, visual sources. So some of them are coming from microfiches from the parliament, from the library of the Greek parliament. Some other ones are images that I took myself from newspapers printed 50, 60 years ago. It's a very wide research on a lot of different mediums, so that somehow debates a lot, both the content, both the historicity of these stories, but also the way images have been associated to these events. So I'm just going to go through a little bit visually through them. This is another assassination in '85 that combines a lot of microfiches images together with images that I found from a press agency, which is almost not existing anymore. I was able to track down the grandson of the man who took these pictures, and what is it's almost like crazy that, you know, a lot of these images, in order to find them, we took weeks of searching these card boxes, because most of these people, they don't have the means to sort of save and digitize a lot of these negatives related to very, very important historical events in Greece. Also, the first images that you saw from the Truman Doctrine, they were again images that we struggled a lot to find and articulate. So for me, why is this important? I mean, the fact that, you know, images are so hard to track, it is because, you know, again, we have to rely on these constructions in order to delve into any historical truth that they may contain. And these are images that I took myself. This is the latest part of the whole project of the book, where I was not allowed to scan or use professional means to take these photographs. They belong to the archive of a very prominent Greek newspaper, which unfortunately it just closed a few months ago due to the financial constraints in Greece. And for me, again, having these images, taking these images in any ways, I mean, you can see the reflections of the lights of the offices in these images, and you know, in the beginning I thought they were very difficult to use, but somehow they become documents not only of these events, but also documents of current financial crisis. So for me, the development of the book and all this project is not only about how these events took place, but also, you know, what's happening to the documents themselves, what's happening to these images. Most of these images, they're either going to die or they're going to disappear, and together with them, we're going to lose a big part of what is this representation of this historical events. So no matter what, I tried to bring into this debate all possible ways, all different methods and strategies that an artist can deploy in order to sort of maintain the sort of integrity between images and the historical truth. I'm just going through them fast, and that's it. Thank you.